Okay, tonight is the 28th of July. It's the 13th night. We're talking on the Digha Nikaya Suttas. We were doing Sutta number 16 for 2 nights. Now this is the third night. We come to page 262. The Lord said, Ananda, let us cross the Hiranyavati river and go to the Mala Sal Grove in the vicinity of Kusinara. Very good, Lord, said Ananda. And the Lord, with a large company of monks, crossed the river and went to the Sal Grove. There the Lord said, Ananda, prepare me a bed between these twin sal trees with my head to the north. I am tired and want to lie down. Very good, Lord, said Ananda, and did so. Then the Lord lay down on his right side in the lying posture, placing one foot on the other, mindful and clearly aware. And those twin sal trees burst forth into an abundance of untimely blossoms, which fell upon the Tathagata's body, sprinkling it and covering it in homage. Divine coral tree flowers fell from the sky. Divine sandalwood powder fell from the sky, sprinkling and covering the Tathagata's body in homage. Divine music and song sounded from the sky in homage to the Tathagata. And the Lord said, Ananda, these sal trees have burst forth into an abundance of untimely blossoms. Divine or heavenly music and song sound from the sky in homage to the Tathagata. Never before has the Tathagata been so honored, revered, esteemed, worshipped and adored. And yet, Ananda, whatever monk, nun, male or female lay follower, dwells practicing the Dhamma properly, and perfectly fulfills the Dhamma way, he or she honors the Tathagata, reveres and esteems him, and pays him the supreme homage. Therefore, Ananda, we will dwell practicing the Dhamma properly and perfectly fulfill the Dhamma way. This must be your watchword. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, whatever homage we pay to the Buddha, the highest is to practice his words in the suttas and do as much as we can to fulfill the way of the Dhamma. Then we really paid homage to the Buddha. That's why when the Arahants attain liberation, they say that they have paid the highest homage to the Buddha because they have totally fulfilled the Buddha's instructions and attain liberation. Just then the Venerable Upavana was standing in front of the Lord, fanning him, and the Lord told him to move. Move aside, monk, do not stand in front of me. And the Venerable Ananda thought, this Venerable Upavana has long been the Lord's attendant, keeping close at hand, at his beck and call. And now in his last hour, the Lord tells him to stand aside and not stand in front of him. Why ever does he do that? And he asked the Lord about this. And the Buddha said, Ananda, the Devas from 10 world spheres have gathered to see the Tathagata for a distance of 12 yojanas around the Mala Sal Grove near Kusinara. There is not a space you could touch with the point of a hair that is not filled with mighty Devas. And they are grumbling, we have come a long way to see the Tathagata. It is rare for a Tathagata, a Sammasambuddha, to arise in the world. And tonight, in the last watch, the Tathagata will attain final Nibbana. And this mighty monk is standing in front of the Lord, preventing us from getting a glimpse of the Tathagata. And Ananda asked, but Lord, what kind of Devas can the Lord perceive? And the Buddha said, Ananda, there are sky devas whose minds are earthbound. They are weeping and tearing their hair, raising their arms, throwing themselves down and twisting and turning, crying, all too soon the blessed Lord is passing away. All too soon the welfarer is passing away. All too soon the eye of the world is disappearing. And there are earth devas whose minds are earthbound, who do likewise. But those devas who are free from craving, endure patiently, saying, all compounded things are impermanent. What is the use of this? Lord, Formerly monks who had spent the rains in various places used to come to see the Tathagata, and we used to welcome them so that such well-trained monks might see you and pay their respects. But with the Lord's passing, we shall no longer have a chance to do this. And the Buddha said, Ananda, there are 4 places, the sight of which should arouse emotion in the faithful. Which are they? Here the Tathagata was born is the first. Here the Tathagata attained supreme enlightenment is the second. Here the Tathagata set in motion the wheel of Dhamma is the third. Here the Tathagata attained the Nibbana element without remainder is the fourth. And Ananda, the faithful monks and nuns, male and female lay followers, will visit those places, and any who die while making the pilgrimage to these shrines with a devout heart will, at the breaking up of the body after death, be reborn in a heavenly world. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, the Buddha is saying that these 4 places, many people will go, even like nowadays. And if you go there with a very devout heart, then if you happen to die there, you will probably be reborn in heaven. But if you have a devout heart, you die anywhere also you'll be reborn in heaven, not necessarily there. And Ananda asked, Lord, how should we act towards women? Do not see them, Ananda. But if we see them, how should we behave, Lord? Do not speak to them, Ananda. But if they speak to us, Lord, how should we behave? Practice mindfulness, Ananda. Stop here for a moment. This part also is very important. When someone practices the spiritual path, he should keep a distance from the opposite sex. So that's why the Buddha says, try not to see women. And then if we have to see them, try not to speak. And we have to speak, practice mindfulness. So it's the same, men towards women and women towards men. And Ananda asked again, Lord, what shall we do with the Tathagata's remains? And the Buddha said, do not worry yourselves about the funeral arrangements, Ananda. You should strive for the highest goal. Devote yourselves to the highest goal and dwell with your minds tirelessly, zealously devoted to the highest goal. There are wise Katyas, Brahmins and householders who are devoted to the Tathagata. They will take care of the funeral. But Lord, what are we to do with the Tathagata's remains? And the Buddha said, Ananda, they should be dealt with like the remains of a wheel-turning monarch. And how is that, Lord? And the Buddha said, Ananda, the remains of a wheel-turning monarch are wrapped in a new linen cloth. This they wrap in teased cotton wool, and this in a new cloth. Having done this 500 times each, they enclose the king's body in an oil vat of iron, which is covered with another iron pot. Then having made a funeral pyre of all manner of perfumes, they cremate the king's body, and they raise a stupa at the crossroads. That, Ananda, is what they do with the remains of a wheel-turning monarch. And they should deal with the Tathagata's body in the same way. A stupa should be erected at the crossroads for the Tathagata, and whoever lays wreaths or puts sweet perfumes and colors there with a devout heart will reap benefit and happiness for a long time. Ananda, there are 4 persons worthy of a stupa. Who are they? A Tathagata, Arahant, Sammasambuddha is one. A Pacceka Buddha is another. A disciple of a Tathagata is another. And a wheel-turning monarch is another. And why is each of these worthy of a stupa? Because, Ananda, at the thought, this is the stupa of a Tathagata, or of a Pacceka Buddha, or of a disciple of the Tathagata, or of a wheel-turning monarch, people's hearts are made peaceful, and then at the breaking up of the body after death, they go to a good destiny and re-arise in a heavenly world. That is the reason, and those are the 4 who are worthy of a stupa. Stop here for a moment. So here, As far as the funeral arrangements, the Buddha said monks should not worry about how to arrange the funeral for the Buddha. He said, leave it to the lay people. Monks' duties is to practice, devoted to the highest goal. And then at the bottom of this section, the Buddha talks about 4 persons worthy of a stupa. One is Sammasambuddha. Second is Pacceka Buddha. Third, here is his disciple, but I think elsewhere they say Aryan disciple of the Buddha. One who has attained Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, or Anagamin, or Arahant. And then the fourth is a wheel-turning monarch, or universal monarch. You notice here, there's no mention of Bodhisattva or Bodhisattva. In the Buddha's teachings, a Bodhisattva is can be Putujana or can be Arya. So if an Arya is already under this the third category. So later books only they put the Bodhisattva on such a high pedestal and say that there are 53 levels of Bodhisattva, and Arahant is only somewhere in the middle. Arahant is even lower than the Bodhisattva. But in fact, Arahant is the highest stage of Aryahood. In fact, these 3, Sammasambuddha, Pacceka Buddha, and Arahant, all 3 are Arahants. Arahant, the word Arahant comes from the word Arahatta. And Arahatta consists of 2 words, Ara and Hatta. Ara is the spokes of the wheel, meaning here the wheel of samsara. Hatta is broken. So one who has broken the wheel of samsara is liberated. So a liberated Arahant, there are 3 types. One is an Arahant disciple of the Buddha, and then the Pacceka Buddha. Pacceka Buddha, Buddha means a self-enlightened Arahant. One in his last life, there's no Dhamma around, and he strives very hard by his own effort. He attains enlightenment, that is a Buddha. So Buddhas, there are 2 types. One is Pacceka, who does not want to teach. This consists of 99.9% of the Buddhas. And Sammasambuddha, one who wants to teach the Dhamma to the whole world. And that is a very rare thing to find. And the Venerable Ananda went into his lodging and stood lamenting, leaning on the doorpost. Alas, I am still a learner, a Seka, with much to do, and the teacher is passing away, who was so compassionate to me. Stop it for a moment. At that time, Venerable Ananda was supposed to be a Sotapanna, first fruit Arya. Then the Lord inquired of the monks where Ananda was, and they told him. So he said to a certain monk, "Go, monk, and say to Ananda for me, 'Friend Ananda, the teacher summons you.' 'Very good, Lord,' said the monk, and did so. 'Very good, friend,' Ananda replied to that monk, and he went to the Lord, saluted him, and sat down to one side. And the Lord said, 'Enough, Ananda, do not weep and wail. Have I not already told you that all things that are pleasant and delightful are changeable, subject to separation and becoming other? So how could it be, Ananda, since whatever is born, become, compounded, is subject to decay? How could it be that it should not pass away? For a long time, Ananda, you have been in the Tathagata's presence, showing loving kindness in acts of body, speech and mind, beneficially, blessedly, wholeheartedly and unstintingly. You have achieved much merit, Ananda. Make the effort, and in a short time you will be free of the asavas." Then the Lord addressed the monks. "Monks, all those who were Arahants, Sammasambuddhas in the past, have had just such a chief attendant as Ananda, and so too will those blessed lords who come in the future. Monks, Ananda is wise. He knows when it is the right time for monks to come to see the Tathagata, when it is the right time for nuns, for male lay followers, for female lay followers, for kings, for royal ministers, for leaders of other schools, and for their pupils. Ananda has 4 remarkable and wonderful qualities. What are they? If a company of monks comes to see Ananda, they are pleased at the sight of him. And when Ananda talks Dhamma to them, they are pleased. And when he is silent, they are disappointed. So it is too with nuns, with male and female lay followers. And these four qualities apply to a wheel-turning monarch. If he is visited by a company of Khattiyas, of Brahmins, of householders, or of ascetics, they are pleased at the sight of him. And when he talks to them, and when he is silent, they are disappointed. And so too it is with Ananda. Stop here for a moment. So you see the Buddha, he praised Ananda to all the other monks, because whenever Ananda has faithfully served the Buddha for 20 or 25 years. So that's why the Buddha was quite fond of him. After this, the Venerable Ananda said, Lord, may the Blessed Lord not pass away in this miserable little town of wattle and daub, right in the jungle, in the back of beyond. Lord, there are other great cities such as Champa, Rajagaha, Savatthi, Saketa, Kosambi or Varanasi. In those places there are wealthy Khattiyas, Brahmins and householders who are devoted to the Tathagata, and they will provide for the Tathagata's funeral in proper style. And the Buddha said, Ananda, don't call it a miserable little town of wattle and daub, right in the jungle, in the back of beyond. Once upon a time, Ananda, King Mahasudassana was a wheel-turning monarch, a rightful and righteous king, who had conquered the land in 4 directions, and ensured the security of his realm, and who possessed the 7 treasures. And Ananda, this King Mahasudassana had this very Kusinara under the name of Kusavati for his capital, and it was 12 yojanas or 120 kilometers long from east to west, and 7 yojanas or 70 kilometers wide from north to south. Kusavati was rich, prosperous, and well populated, crowded with people and well stocked with food, just as the Deva city of Alakamanda is rich, prosperous and well populated, crowded with yakas and well stocked with food. So was the royal city of Kusavati. And the city of Kusavati was never free of 10 sounds by day or night. The sound of elephants, horses, carriages, kettle drums, side drums, lutes, singing, cymbals and gongs, with cries of eat, drink and be merry as stand. Eat, drink and be merry nowadays will be yam sing. So this one, you see, the Buddha chose to come to this place to pass away. And Venerable Ananda said, this is such a, what we call a ulu place in the back of beyond. Why do you come here? You go to some rich city and pass away there, and the rich lay people will give you a proper funeral. The Buddha said, don't look down on this place. This place used to be the capital of a wheel-turning king. And actually the Buddha was the wheel-turning king. So it looks like the memory of such a beautiful life when he was a wheel-turning monarch brought him back to that place. That's why you see a lot of people, if you look like last night, yesterday, today, you saw the VCD on children who remember their past lives. These children, when they remember their past lives, they want to go back to where they were before. And when they go back and the memory comes back to them, sorrow wells up. They feel a lot of sorrow, all the attachment from the previous life. So in a way, the Buddha still all that memory of the beautiful life, even though you maybe you can't say it's attached to it, but the memory of it brings him back to that place to pass away there. And now Ananda, go to Kusinara and announce to the Malas of Kusinara, tonight Vasetas, in the last watch, the Tathagata will attain final Nibbana. Approach him, Vasetas, approach him, lest later you should regret, saying, The Tathagata passed away in our parish, and we did not take the opportunity to see him for the last time. Very good Lord, said Ananda, and taking robe and bowl, he went with a companion to Kusinara. Just then the Malas of Kusinara were assembled in their meeting hall on some business, and Ananda came to them and delivered the Lord's words. And when they heard Ananda's words, the Malas, with their sons, daughters-in-law and wives, were struck with anguish and sorrow. Their minds were overcome with grief, so that they were all weeping and tearing their hair. Then they all went to the Sal Grove where the Venerable Ananda was. And Ananda thought, if I allow the Malas of Kusinara to salute the Lord individually, the night will have passed before they have all paid homage. I had better let them pay homage family by family, saying, Lord, the Mala so-and-so with his children, his wife, his servants and his friends, pays homage at the Lord's feet. And so he presented them in that way, and thus allowed all the Malas of Kusinara to pay homage to the Lord in the first watch. I'll stop here for a moment. So here you see Ananda is a very intelligent attendant of the Buddha. So he always finds the best thing to do. For this person got to be intelligent and got to be mindful, got to observe. How you see in Cantonese? Sang Seng. Sang Seng. Sang Mok. Sang Mok. Sang Mok. And at that time, a wanderer called Subhadda was in Kusinara, and he heard that the ascetic Gotama was to attain final Nibbana in the final watch of that night. And he thought, I've heard from venerable wanderers, advanced in years, teachers of teachers, that a Tathagata, a Sammasambuddha, only rarely arises in the world. And tonight in the last watch, the ascetic Gotama will attain final Nibbana. Now a doubt has risen in my mind, and I feel sure that the ascetic Gotama can teach me a doctrine to dispel that doubt. So Subhadda went to the Mala Sal Grove, to where the Venerable Ananda was, and told him what he had thought. Reverend Ananda, may I be permitted to see the ascetic Gotama? But Ananda replied, enough, friend Subhadda, do not disturb the Tathagata. The Lord is weary. And Subhadda made his request a second and a third time, but still Ananda refused it. But the Lord overheard this conversation between Ananda and Subhadda, and he called to Ananda, enough, Ananda, do not hinder Subhadda. Let him see the Tathagata, for whatever Subhadda asks, he will ask in quest of enlightenment, and not to annoy me. And what I say in reply to his questions, he will quickly understand. Then Ananda said, go in, friend Subhadda, the Lord gives you leave. So you see here, stop here for a moment. If somebody comes to discuss Dhamma with the Buddha, even on his deathbed, he is willing to discuss, even though he is tired and weary. That's how much people who understand the Dhamma value the Dhamma. Then Subhadda approached the Lord, exchanged courtesies with him, and sat down to one side, saying, Venerable Gotama, all those ascetics and Brahmins who have orders and followings, who are teachers, well known and famous as founders of schools, and popularly regarded as saints like Purana Kassapa, Makali Gosala, Ajita Kesa Kambali, Pakuda Kachayana, Sanjaya Balata Putta, and the Niganta Nata Putta. Have they all realized the truth as they all make out, or have none of them realized it, or have some realized it and some not? And the Buddha said, enough, Subhadda, never mind whether all or none or some of them have realized the truth. I will teach you Dhamma, Subhadda. Listen, pay close attention and I will speak. Yes, Lord, said Subhadda. And the Lord said, in whatever Dhamma Vinaya, the Noble Eightfold Path is not found, no ascetic is found of the first, second, third or fourth grade, meaning the first fruit, second fruit, third fruit and fourth fruit are Riyala. But such ascetics can be found of the first, second, third and fourth grade in the Dhamma Vinaya where the Noble Eightfold Path is found. Now Subhadda, in this Dhamma Vinaya, or this Buddhist religion, the Noble Eightfold Path is found. And in it are to be found ascetics of the first, second, third and fourth grade. Those other schools are devoid of true ascetics. But if in this one the monks were to live the life to perfection, the world would not lack for arahants. 29 years of age I was when I went forth to seek the good. Now over 50 years have passed since the day that I went forth to roam the realm of wisdom's law, outside of which no ascetic is. Other schools of such are bare, but if here monks live perfectly, the world won't lack for arahants. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying, as long as people practice the Noble Eightfold Path fully, then arahants can still be found. So to practice the Noble Eightfold Path perfectly, we have to take the Buddha's words in the suttas as our best guide. At this the wanderer Subhadra said, "Excellent Lord, excellent. It is as if someone were to set up what had been knocked down, or to point out the way to one who had got lost, or to bring an oil lamp into a dark place so that those with eyes could see what was there. Just so the Blessed Lord has expounded the Dhamma in various ways. And I, Lord, go for refuge to the Blessed Lord, the Dhamma and the Sangha. May I receive the going forth in the Lord's presence. May I receive ordination." Stop here for a moment. So here you see, the Buddha is dying already. This man is asking for ordination at the last moment when the Buddha is dying. And the Buddha said, "Subhadra, whoever coming from another school or sect seeks the going forth and ordination in this Dhamma Vinaya must wait 4 months on probation, and at the end of 4 months, those monks who are established in mind may let him go forth and give him ordination to the status of a monk. However, there can be a distinction of persons." And he said, "Lord, if those coming from other schools or sects must wait 4 months on probation, I will wait 4 years, and then let them give me the going forth and the ordination." But the Lord said to Ananda, "Let Subhadra go forth." "Very good, Lord," said Ananda. And Subhadra said to the Venerable Ananda, "Friend Ananda, it is a great gain for you all. It is very profitable for you that you have obtained the consecration of discipleship in the teacher's presence." Then Subhadra received the going forth in the Lord's presence and the ordination. And from the moment of his ordination, the Venerable Subhadra, alone, secluded, unwearying, zealous and resolute, in a short time attained to that for which young men of good family go forth from the household life into homelessness, that unexcelled culmination of the holy life, having realized it here and now by his own insight and dwelt therein. Birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is nothing further here. And the Venerable Subhadra became another of the Arahants. He was the last personal disciple of the Buddha. So he was the very last person to be ordained in the presence of the Buddha.